As we all know, everybody likes kung fu fighting, and being as fast as lightning myself, I immediately thought of what better way to enjoy that fighting than watching Jack Black mercilessly beat up animals. The sequel. Now, I know Blackjack can be a little frightening, but don't worry because his jokes are delivered with expert timing, as this movie follows the same patterns as many of the other DreamWorks movies with having a sequel that's better than the original. But what makes it so good? Well, let's start at the beginning and go through why Kung Fu Panda 2 is a sequel done right. So, our movie starts off with a brief summary of how the bird from Angry Birds, Lord Shen, was told how he will be defeated by a panda and decides to go Eren Yeager on their asses. After committing genocide on all the pandas, this guy wants to rule all of China. But of course, this movie isn't about him. This is a movie about what is possibly the least racist character in cartoon history, the black, white, and Asian Po. He meets Master Shifu, who is trying to find his inner peace and is now waterbending, something that will now be taught to Po. But suddenly, they are attacked by Shen's minions who are searching for metal to build a weapon. But during the fight, Po sees a symbol which gives him a flashback to the rumbling. A flashback to when all the pandas were killed. Po, interested in this flashback, goes to see his dad and finds out he's adopted. A true shocker for the crowd. Po learns about how he was left out on the doorstep Harry Potter style or Meet the Robinson style and was taken care of. And oh my god, he is so cute, I want him. We are then brought to Shen infiltrating a castle, proving just how good these DreamWorks villains are. As of making this video, we are 3 for 3 with every villain in a sequel movie being absolutely amazing, and Shen here is no different as he just absolutely blasts these leaders into smithereens. Po and the gang are then alerted to this and sent to deal with the problem. This is the start of the conflict between Po and Shen, while also starting the conflict between Po and his adopted father, with Po questioning whether or not he should be considered as his real father. After a classic kung fu training montage, Po sleeps and gets beat up by a radish. And just remember that trail, okay? The trail, the sound, and the effects of this radish being shot across the screen, as this will be very, very important later on. Po then eats somebody and decides to get help from the Great Master Ox and Master Crocs, who decide not to help because if they do, then Shen will blow up the city. Armin style! Funny haha, they now get caught and are brought to Shen. This is yet again where Shen is just a fun villain who literally keeps Po alive because of how stupid he is. But using this extra time, they escape, or try to, when Po sees Shen's feathers, which gives him another flashback of the panda rumbling with Shen in front of the fire and destruction. With no explanation, Shen escapes and decides to start his plan to take over all of China. Shen then reveals that he is doing this because he feels that his parents wronged and hated him, and that taking China will prove his worth. Po sneaks away from the gang to ask Shen what happened to his parents, when Shen tells him that Po's parents didn't love him, which is just Shen projecting his feelings onto Po. Shen then shoots Po with one of the cannons. Shen's old fortune teller then saves Po after he floats in the river for a while, and brings to light his memories of his parents and his species being massacred by Shen while cutting in and out of the flashback, for Po to realize he's standing in the same place his parents were killed. Po no longer wants to repress this memory, and it allows him to tap into his inner peace, showing how his mother sacrificed her life to make sure Po was safe, still being a loving and caring mother to make her son smile, to embrace the last moment of being with her child. Crying, she runs away, leading Shen away from Po. This isn't just where Po learns the truth of his parents, but is where Po learns the truth of himself and who he decides to be. He decides to be a son, a friend, and a warrior. Now finding his inner peace, he makes his way to save his friends and to save all of China from Shen. Po fights and saves his friends with more joining to help, and together they stop Shen. Oh shit. So they get absolutely bodied by Shen's cannon, with Po now being the target. With all cannons aimed on Po, he stands as the only wall in the way, the only warrior in between China's domination and its freedom. Using his inner peace, Po deflects the cannonballs in true Dragon Warrior style, and uses these balls to defeat Shen and save the day. Shen then talks about how Po found his peace, and how it should be impossible as Shen himself never found his own peace. Upset, Shen fights Po mano a mano, but ultimately is crushed by his own creation. Interesting, isn't it? Shen couldn't find his peace, so he found peace in death. Solidifying the end of this movie, Po goes back to his adopted father and realizes that it doesn't matter if he's adopted, because his adopted father was there the whole time, taking care of him and loving him when there was no one else left to do so. Each frame of this movie was made to perfection, but dissecting these frames leads us into this movie's analysis. This movie is obviously dark, but honestly, I love it. DreamWorks is not afraid to go dark, dealing with matters such as death while effortlessly incorporating it into a logical story that ultimately helps to build the story and its characters. I mean, there is literal panda genocide, something I completely forgot was in this movie. And getting into the genocide scene in this movie, the only reason it occurs is because Lord Shen saw his future, and in fear of being defeated, Shen killed all of the pandas. But by succumbing to this fear, he sealed his fate in his demise. By trying to avoid his fate by killing all the pandas, he created it. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction, and that is the living embodiment of Shen's character and how each action he takes comes to slap him in the face just as hard. Now, let's move on to the end of the movie where Po is in this fantastic scene where he is returning the cannonball. Wait, is that the same effect as the radish? Yes that is, which is an amazing little detail that I have missed for years, but it makes so much sense. To overcome Shen's cannons, he had to overcome the radish in his dreams, or a metaphor for his past with his family. And when he finally does overcome his past, the radish, he's able to face Shen and his weapons. This can also be seen much like yin and yang, a symbol often shown throughout the movie, with Po having to overcome the suppressed memories of his loving parents, but also having to face the darkness it presents in their deaths. When I said that Po was the least racist character because he's black and white, I didn't just mean that as a joke. I meant that in a metaphorical way, as he literally has both black and white, good and evil, within him and his past. Po deflecting these cannonballs is also in the same scene where Shen is in pure panic mode, which is amazing as he once again continues to give into his fear that started this all in the first place. Shen would have won if instead of panicking and firing more cannons, he would have chosen to just stop. Po could not have won if he didn't have more cannonballs to throw back at Shen. Yet again, Shen's fear and irrational actions come back to bite him. Ultimately, this whole movie comes together to express the message of how it does not matter what misfortune you have suffered, but that your actions in the present make you who you are. Both Shen and Po had rough childhoods, but while one decided to give into that misfortune, the other decided to bring good into the world despite his past. Bringing us to the end of the analysis and into just how good this movie portrays all of this with its fantastic visuals and audio. I don't have much to say in this section, everything is great here. The visuals look really good and I love the painting-like sections when looking at Po's flashbacks. I had zero complaints while watching this movie as it holds up extremely well, and the same can be said about the audio and voice acting. All of it's great, especially Shen and Po. They had some phenomenal voice acting that really helped to give this movie the impact it has. Overall, visuals and audio are great, there's nothing to complain about here. It's got that DreamWorks sequel stamp of quality. Everything about this movie screams amazing. Its story, its messages, its visuals, its audio, and its impact on me as a human being. I walked away from this movie with motivation to be a better person. No longer should I dwell on my past mistakes, but look into the future to see what the future me can become and who he will be as a person. Kung Fu Panda taught me this, and I hope you can take that away too.